we're back with another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break, Game Source, and Pop Culture Cosmos. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe right below Joe Soro today on YouTube, or go ahead and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can go ahead and get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with Inside Sports Fantasy Football or the Pop Culture Cosmos right there for you. Plus, if you can go ahead and support Joe Soro, aka Ox1947, at his site, LakersBall.com, it is sincerely appreciated. Well, for most everyone out there, as far as you fantasy football players, you're already done with your draft because it's game time starting on Thursday with the NFL season back in form. But how did you do in your league? How did you do in your draft? We want to know. Please give us a shout out at Inside Sports FF on Twitter or isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com. You can let us know how you did, or if you have any questions on lineup changes, waiver wire issues, lineup questions, potential trades that you might have in mind. So all that begins, so please give us a shout out there. But I thought I'd bring a good friend of mine who hangs out with me at the Lakers Fast Break every single week. It's a good friend of mine. You got to go ahead and check him out, like I said before, at LakersBall.com. It is Joe Soro. Joe, good to have you on Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Appreciate it so much. How did you do in your fantasy football draft?
My drafts were graded as A's as far as what I got.
Did you go through Yahoo, or who did you go through?
I have one through ESPN and the other through NFL.com.
That's awesome. I did one through Yahoo. I'm sorry I only got an A-, but I did lead my league. So,
but I don't know. I never paid attention to the grading, the grades after a draft. This is the first time I've actually got an email where it said, I had an A, but I don't really know what that means.
I mean, I did. Yes, last year I got an A- similar to it, but it only led to just a first-round playoff loss as far as the team is concerned. But you talk about when they send those grades to you, their evaluations, at least initially, it's got to give you a nice compliment per se.
I know the game enough, and I know the players enough to make a pretty good decision throughout the entire draft. The best season I ever had in fantasy football was in 2018. This was the year Patrick Mahomes was slated to start. No one really knew much about what he was going to be. I had probably the greatest season. I was one play away from probably having one of the greatest seasons in fantasy football history. My draft that year was Patrick Mahomes, Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp got hurt that year too. Tyler Lockett ended up being my replacement for him. But I had Patrick Mahomes in his first year playing, and we all know what happened then. Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey. I had Cooper Kupp. I had Tyler Lockett replacing him when he got hurt towards the beginning of the year. I had Juju Smith-Schuster, who had a phenomenal year, being the secondary receiver for the Steelers when Antonio Brown was going crazy that year. And I ran through everyone. There was one game, and it was one play. I had Travis Kelce as my tight end too, by the way. It was towards the end of the game. Patrick, it was perfect. The ball was like right there, right in the end zone. I needed one TD for that game to win that week. And there was the safety, I can't remember who it was, just at the perfect time, got right right there when the ball hit into Kelsey's hands in the end zone, knocked it out, and I ended up losing, I think, by, I don't know, was it 6 or 7 points? And that year I finished 14-1.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby.
That year, and I rolled. I mean, it was real fun. And then I was in a second league, another league that year. I made it to the championship game, and I lost in the championship game. He had Patrick Mahomes in that championship game, and I took a little bit of a risk picking him up in my ESPN league. I usually don't draft a quarterback in the 5th round, but I felt like there's something brewing with this. Oh, well, is Patrick Mahomes going to be as good without Ty Hill? Mm-hmm. And I know that Juju Smith-Schuster is a good player. As a matter of fact, I'm still upset being a Steeler fan that he's not a Steeler anymore, because I think he would have been a huge asset for the team now, especially with Mitch Trubisky being the quarterback. And he'd be a nice kind of like security blanket for him. And even if Kenny Pickett ended up taking over down later in the season. But I'm thinking, and this is how it happens when you're a great player like Patrick Mahomes, he's already getting that noise where, well, is he going to really be that good? Is this receiving corps going to be really kind of what it was? And is Travis Kelce getting too old? I'm expecting Patrick Mahomes to have a similar season in 2018, just because of that. And I think it's Andy Reid, guys. It's Andy Reid. Andy Reid, I don't really think there's an argument, at least not on my end. He's the best offensive play caller of our generation, last 20 years. And if anybody's going to find a way to make it work, I think it's going to be him. And what better weapon than to have Patrick Mahomes being your gunslinger in that?
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot to look forward to, but when you were building your team and how the draft laid out for you, what are some of the things that actually you were able to go ahead and execute that was towards your plan? Because I know for me, even though I had the number 4 position, it all went awry when wide receivers started going at the top of the draft. So I had to change my strategy from leaning towards a running back dominant top of the draft into something a little bit different. Now, it worked out as, again, so far, on paper, I have what looks to be the best team in my league, but that's all on paper. As you and I both know, it takes the games and injuries and things of that nature and how you handle the lineups, et cetera, et cetera. So going into it, my friend, how did the draft lay out for you the other night when you went ahead and made your picks?
In both drafts, I tried to go heavy on running backs towards the beginning because I knew I was going to go receiver the rest of the way. Mm-hmm. They're both PPR leagues. Mm-hmm. We are in I believe this, last few seasons, we are very receiver heavy, receiver centric. Is that the word? Yeah. So it didn't matter. I don't think it mattered if I was picking at 4, which I did in one, and then 9th in the other. I wasn't too concerned about that. I think those days where you were concerned to pick in the top 1 or 2 or 3 is when you knew you were going to get a 1,500-yard running back who could catch 70, 80 balls. I guess McCaffrey could be that guy.
If he stays healthy.
But, it's not fair to expect a running back to be available, especially after 6-7 years in the league. It's just a brutal sport for running backs. I don't know. You don't know. You're just risking a lot there. And then you got, guys like Derrick Henry, who I have a lot of respect for. I think he trains as well as any running back has ever done. And is Tennessee is the only team I have seen in the NFL the last 5 to 6 years that has kept a little bit of the old school football viable. So whenever someone says, well, this is a passing league, well, it's an arena football league, I'm one of them. Tennessee gives you that hope that the fundamental game of running the football and playing smart defense is still alive. And I hate to crap on Ryan Tannehill, but if Tennessee had, let's say, a Matthew Stafford, just a little bit better quarterback, they probably would have won a Super Bowl last couple of years, one of the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have made sense. It would have, been one of those things where, hey, the running back can still be an important element in this game.
Especially with Derrick Henry taking a probably one of the larger shares for any running back that's out in the NFL right now.
Well, the uniqueness about him, this is the amazing part about this, is he really gets better. I know he got hurt last year, and it was, I'm sorry to say, inevitable. There's just too much activity there that for him not to eventually get something. I hope nothing happens to him. I wasn't able to draft him in any of the drafts, but I wish him well because I think he's the guy that puts in that kind of work, especially in a brutal position like that. You got to give him a heads. You got to take your hats off for on that. I don't know. I'm amazed at how he really does get better the later the game is.
Yeah.
And it's just not, it should be fundamental, I guess, from all the years you've been watching football, but he really is able to do it. And it's a really beautiful game to watch when you can watch him just see people bounce off him. I guess I miss Jerome Bettis. I'm a Steeler fan. I miss those days where Jerome Bettis was that guy where he would close the games and you just, after 3.5 quarters of trying to slow someone down, and then you're like dead tired, and then you got to run into an anomaly, which I think Derrick Henry can be is that guy. He's an anomaly in this league.
Yeah,
where you have this and self-proclaimed fat guy like Jerome Bettis who had amazing feet and amazing ability to take all that pounding after 10, 11, 12 years, yet still feel like one of the first questions I'd love to ask Jerome is, how's your body, dude? Because I never felt like he ever looked debilitating, even during injuries that he had. And I would be interested to hear how Derrick Henry feels. And those type of things, preparing the important parts at that first 3-4 rounds, do you have that running back that you can rely on week in and week out? Sort of. So now what's the next step? Okay, where are we going with this? You know that the league is going to protect the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And is there going to be a mental thing that's going to be happening with these quarterbacks, i.e., let's say Lamar Jackson's another guy. This guy is trying to get his, the real life stuff can factor into the fantasy thing, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Is Lamar Jackson going to be so amped to prove the Ravens wrong, kind of like Aaron Judge has this year, in the Yankees not giving him what he wanted at the beginning of the year? And is he going to turn into this psycho that's going to go 40 touchdowns through the air and drop 15 running? It might happen, That's probably the most exciting part of what was going on this last few days during my drafts is who is more likely to kind of really come out and really say, well, you guys thought, I lost this guy and I was going to kind of be downgraded. Well, these guys don't want to pay me my money. And is this guy going to be healthy enough to, play 4 quarters, 17 games a year? Here we go. So that played a factor in it. And I try to do my best to make sure that the guys who are going to really get the ball at the end of the game are the ones that I'm getting. That's another big thing.
We may be headed to the replay booth, but we'll be right back with Inside Sports Fantasy Football. For the latest news and information, analysis and opinions on the Los Angeles Lakers and the NBA, check out the Lakers Fast Break podcast today on wherever you get your podcasts. Check out what's been going on with the Pop Culture Cosmos Show and the PCC Multiverse.
Bring me all of the Star Trek all of the time, and I will be an incredibly happy girl. Even if it's terrible. It's like pizza. Bad pizza is still pretty good because it's pizza. Bad Star Trek is still pretty good because it's still Star Trek. That's the way that I look at it.
Just let it sit in the refrigerator for a day and be cold.
That's it. Yep.
That's the Pop Culture Cosmos Show.
And the PCC Multiverse.
Catch our shows on Worldwide Radio 7 days a week and wherever you get your podcasts. I'll tell you what, sounds like you actually focused in on a good plan and stuck to it. in your draft. Like I said, things changed for me. I will say that as the draft unfolded, I sort of focused away from running backs until the mid rounds, where I still picked up 3 1,000-yard rushers. But I was able to go ahead, and while everybody was leaning left, I went right when I saw the quarterbacks, all of them were still available. So in the early rounds, the 3, 4, and 5 rounds, there was a Josh Allen who is the leading or projected to be the leading fantasy point scorer in the league, and also Kyler Murray, who is number 3 projected to be out. So you know what? Those guys were just too tempting for me. I picked them up both. Hey, worst comes to worst, I can use one or both in a massive trade that can get me a nice haul back. So I know a lot of people are wondering why you focus in on quarterbacks in that higher of the draft. I don't usually tend to do that. I usually wait until the middle rounds, but with those top scorers sitting out there like that, you know what? I was still able to build with some nice wide receivers, still be able to build with some running backs that were still available because people were more focused in on the top rankings and what they were at as opposed to what fantasy points they're projected through for this season. Because the most important thing is fantasy points is what I was looking forward to on all my picks and how much they could go ahead and get total out of me regardless of where they were ranked.
So what was it based off of? You know, every pick that you had, other than when you started getting into the later rounds where it didn't matter.
Projected fantasy points for me.
And the later rounds are almost going to, I try to focus on the little sleepers that I did know about.
Yes.
By the way, for those who aren't in the know, and it looked like a lot of you didn't, and I play with some smart people. I got George Pickens in like the 11th round.
Nice pick. There you go.
And I'm telling you guys right now, whoever didn't pick him up made a massive mistake. That guy is destroying people. And I'm talking, it's looking very eerie. It's looking like a Jamar Chase type situation, which, by the way, I got him too. You know, these are the things that a lot of, I mean, this draft geeks out there, there's 100 fantasy football geeks out there that pay attention to that stuff. They're everywhere. I'm not saying there aren't, but my football knowledge is based off of me just being an observer. I don't read the publications. There is on occasion where I'll listen to the fantasy football show on Sirius Radio just because I'm kind of interested in hearing that one little thing, like I'm hearing something here or I'm hearing something there, or watch out for this guy because this happened. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know everything watching TV. Once in a while, you'll get some like random guy that'll say something and then they'll kind of steer you where you want to go. But ultimately, my decision making during a draft is going to be based off of what I know and what's going to work. So based off my first draft, I went a little unconventional on getting a quarterback in the 5th round. I did pick up Patrick Mahomes because I felt like the first 4 rounds I got really what I wanted. I got Eckler, I got Jones, I got Johnson, and then I had gotten at that point Javonte Williams, which if you look at the pattern that I put together here is I'm putting together offensive players other than maybe one guy. I put together stud quarterbacks, quarterbacks that can run, that utilize the running back.
As did I.
Yeah,
it's a great thing.
Yeah, and then as far as everything else, you know, I picked the defense and kickers last. I have no, you know, I'll pick Boswell for one. I picked McPherson for the other, but that's an interchangeable situation. Everyone knows that it does this. And then of course on defense, with defense being kind of marginal in this league now, I'm a week to week on the defense, and I look for the same thing every week with defense. Are they playing the Giants? Are they playing Seattle? Then that's likely the defense I'm going to go after because they have weak quarterback positions. Tight end is usually the hardest position.
Well, I was so thankful that it became just a flex in our league. So it really took a load off me, and because I always prioritize tight ends low. I was so pleased to see that tight ends in our league was something that wasn't necessary to get. So I made sure I avoided them because of just the fact there's so few that produce at a high level.
I'm not a fan of that. I think it starts to get too gimmicky. There was a vote about having possibly two quarterbacks. One as I don't like it. I like the quarterback, two running back, two receiver, and then the traditional stuff, because I think that shows your true talent. Can you pick? Can you interchange the tight ends if you have to, or pick the right tight end? I got Goddard, which I had last year, and he played phenomenally. In my other league, I got Hunter Henry because nothing kind of presented itself early with a.
I've had him in the past.
There's some talk that this is probably not the right week to have him, but I figure Mac Jones, if he's going to not be, if he doesn't advance, usually quarterbacks that have issues are always going to try to
either check. Known as a game manager.
He's a check down guy, and check down guys usually like to go to their tight end.
Yeah.
So that's why I went with him. But what's exciting is I feel very comfortable with the guys that are up top. I have Derek Carr in my other one. He's got weapons galore. And then really everybody on my bench is really a receiver. I really don't have any really very few other guys on the bench that aren't receivers, so that in case a Hollywood Brown doesn't play well in Arizona, or if, let's say, Deontay Johnson doesn't stay healthy for whatever reason, there's plenty of backup there with guys that are very, very good at PPR. They're very, very good in the PPR league. Even if, like, a Hunter Renfrow, I have a good feeling that in Las Vegas, he's going to. He kind of came out last year, became the guy over there. And I think by having Adams there, he's going to be getting even more looks
He won't be getting doubles.
He won't be getting doubles. And there's something going on with, why am I drawing a blank? The tight end.
Oh, Derek Waller.
Yeah. There's something going on there. I don't know if he's got an injury that's bigger than what they're saying. Tight ends is probably you could argue in these times the tight end position gets just as much abuse as a running back, because they are used a lot. And Hunter Renfrow seems to be that guy that's going to be, I think, getting those 8 and 9 catch type games, even if he's getting only 64 yards in them. So in that case, that guy's giving me 14 to 15 points, and that's pretty darn good for a flex player. Even as a secondary receiver, you're a gambler. You're a gambler you're a fantasy gambler, and you do need some luck. There's a lot of poker in this. Also, you still got to have some knowledge, and then of course the part of making sure you adapt to the team that you're playing against. That's something I think a lot of people don't look at. They just pay attention to one side of this, but I think you can play off of your opponent a lot of times if you know how to do that.
Once again, it's Joe Soro from LakersBall.com. Really great to have him here, and I hope to have him on future episodes. I've got Jason Dutch always here as well, and of course Chris Lardieri and Dom Lardieri whenever they can stop by as well. But before we head on out, it is week 1 in the NFL. The season is here, my friend. There's no longer any waiting or anticipation. When this flows out, it will be the season opening day as we go ahead and head into another fabulous season of the NFL. Before we head on out, my friend, any week 1 matchups fantasy football owners need to be aware of as they start their season with the hopes of winning their fantasy championship.
You as far as which players to play?
Yeah. Anything that stands out to you for week 1 in the NFL? Obviously, the Bills and the Rams, that I think is going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be more of an offensive battle. So if you have their defenses, I think I'd probably be a little bit wary unless you're looking to see if you can get any fumbles or interceptions out of it. But yardage-wise, I think you're going to be hindered a bit there. I think that a team to look out for is the 49ers. If you have their defense, they're playing at the Bears in Chicago. And what they're going to do with a Chicago team that's not thought of very well, it could be a good time for their defense if you have them, or if you see them on the waiver wire, it might be someone might be a team you want to pick up theirs. Those are the kind of things that I'm looking forward to in looking at for week 1. Anything that you're looking at in particular?
Not really.
Just feeling out for the so far?
Yeah, it's more of if the question was what team may surprise you in week one, I have a feeling the Jets are going to do something this week. So I would, and with the fact that Lamar Jackson's still dealing with, a distraction, and Baltimore's dealing with a distraction, they might get caught off guard.
But he's highly motivated, and that's why he's predicted to be at the top of many fantasy leagues.
I think from a football standpoint, it's dangerous. From a statistical standpoint, Lamar could still have a good game yet not win the game, which in a weird way would explain probably why the Ravens are reluctant to drop $250 million of guaranteed money for him.
Yeah.
Fantasy wise, Lamar is a gem. When he's playing, unfortunately, can he take you to the Super Bowl, and can he really read a defense in the playoffs? I always said it's the guys that separate themselves in this league are the quarterbacks that can read a defense in the playoffs and execute it, because things get even faster and more vicious in the playoffs, and a lot of people can't catch up to that speed, and that's so far been the issue. I got a little knowledge in terms of Lamar's ability because the Steelers seem to kind of have his number. They've dealt with a quarterback of his ability before, and they're usually able to, somewhat contain him.
Yeah.
And they used to have a quarterback like that back in the day named Cordell Stewart. It's so hard to win. We think it's easy because maybe we've been watching Tom Brady play, for the last 25,000 years, and we don't realize that getting 7 Super Bowls is that doesn't happen, man. You win 1 and you're happy, let alone 7. So those type of things in terms of what to expect, I'm more kind of leaning towards more of the football side of things instead of the fantasy stuff. I'm going to have my eye out on running backs. Which one's going to emerge out of the 32 teams? Which one's going to be that one where, man, I'm going to get this guy, and this guy's going to be my second quarter, my flex guy. And that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Once again, it's Joe Soro. Please go ahead and check him out today at LakersBall.com. Be part of one of the great groups talking great NBA and the Lakers right there for you at LakersBall.com. Plus, you can catch his many appearances right now on the Lakers Fast Break channel on YouTube or Lakers Fast Break, wherever you get your podcasts. If you, again, have any questions on lineups, if you have any questions on potential trades, you have any questions on waiver wire pickups at all during the season, we answered them all last season. We truly hope that you go ahead and do that again. If you have any questions for us, please go ahead and hit us up. Once again, Inside Sports FF on Twitter or isfantasyfootball at yahoo.com. Well, Joe, great to have you here. I love talking NFL football. I know in the coming weeks, you and I hopefully will get together talking football again on this show. And I know you're going to be doing a lot of great things for us here at the Lakers Fast Break as well. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
I would say watch out for Javonte Williams. If there's a player that could win the fantasy player of the year with statistics, watch out for that one. The team has a quarterback now, and he is a very good running back. And I think they're going to start feeding him the ball. And he can catch the ball out the backfield as well. So he's going to be a huge asset for Russell Wilson. And Denver's very, very, very excited about having a quarterback finally that can probably start getting them back to title contention. So
a well-paid one at that.
Yeah, big time. And the negative there is you're going to have to win with him now.
Yes. And
you're going to have to pay everyone else a little bit. That's the problem paying a quarterback 40 to 50 mil, especially in a hard cap league. You're going to need that. You're going to need a revolving door of running backs that are coming in that you're not going to be able to pay 10 and 15 million for. He's probably going to get a couple of maybe $15 million type receivers and then maybe a few on defense. But when you start paying that quarterback that much money now, it's going to, and that's what kind of killed Seattle to a degree. I don't want to say that Russell Wilson is a a bit overrated. I don't think that's the right word, even though a little bit of me says he's good, but he's not to me in the Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers area. And of course, I always get backlash. Well, Aaron Rodgers always loses the playoffs, and he's always getting his butt kicked by the Niners. I go, it's a team sport at the end of the day. I'm more talking about the position of quarterback. You can see when someone is kind of next level. And Russell Wilson's a very, very good quarterback. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm more tight on my who's great category. I think the NFL kind of did themselves a disservice this last Hall of Fame selection. I couldn't believe their class. I'm sorry, but I wasn't impressed. Those guys, I watched those guys play, and they were good players, but none of those guys I would consider great. Yeah. I thought the Hall of Fame was for great players. So, but Russell Wilson has proven that when he has the right team around him, which seemed like he couldn't get it in Seattle the last 3-4 years, you're going to have a young running back now, like you did when you had Marshawn Lynch. You have a good line, you have a good defense, and now, play the run and then throw when you have to game, and Russell will benefit there. We just have to see how good this rookie coach does with it.
Absolutely, indeed. But once again, check out Joe Soro today at LakersBall.com. And of course, part of the Lakers Fast Break, you can go ahead and be part of all the great NBA action right there at Lakers Fast Break, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, subscribe on YouTube today. Well, Joe, best of luck to you this weekend in the first weekend of the NFL season. Also, as well, to all you fantasy football owners out there. I know it's nervous time right now, but I'm just going to say right now, stick with your team. Don't panic. As we always say on this show, don't hit the panic button. Good luck with your team this weekend. And also, good luck to you for the rest of the season from all of us right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football.